At 1:17 a.m., you are holding your phone in bed. There is nothing important going on. No one has sent anything urgent, and you are not really happy either. But your finger keeps scrolling down. Then you open the fridge even though you are not really hungry. Take a sip of water, go back to bed, and promise yourself just one more video. Sounds very modern, does it not? But the story of humans struggling with the night did not begin with phones, Netflix, or work messages at midnight. Long before there was electric light, before there were brightly lit cities, before there were alarm clocks, humans had already had a very complicated relationship with darkness. They did not only sleep, they were afraid. They kept watch, they built fires, they told stories, they loved one another. They looked into the night and imagined gods, monsters, ancestors, memories. Night has never been only the empty space between 2 days. And before we keep digging deeper into these stories, this history, please subscribe to the channel so I know you are ready. So, before electric light existed, what was it that gave humans the right not to sleep as soon as darkness fell? The answer sounds very simple: fire. But fire was not only a tool for cooking for our very distant ancestors. Fire could be the line between a night survived and a night disappearing into the bushes. Try to imagine a world without light bulbs, without glass windows, without anti-theft locks, without the sound of cars on the street. When the sun set, everything changed its rules. Human eyes grew weaker. The air became colder. A snapping branch was enough to make the whole group fall silent. Because in the darkness, you do not know whether it is the wind, an animal, or something looking back at you. Then fire appeared. A small circle of light opened in the middle of the night. Not enough to erase all the darkness, but enough for humans to gather together. Enough to keep warm. Enough to see one another's faces. Enough to make a few predator eyes step back a little farther. At Wonderwork Cave, South Africa, archaeologists have found very early traces of fire, possibly from around 1 million years ago. This does not mean humans everywhere had perfectly mastered fire from that time onward, but it suggests something very big. From very early on, our ancestors had begun to change the night. And this is the important point. Fire did not kill the darkness. It only created a small island within the darkness. But on that island, humans had a few more hours to sit close to one another, repair tools, share food, watch children sleep, and listen to the world out there, still lurking. Darkness made humans afraid. Fire made humans sit closer together. Remember, that flame did not make the night disappear. It only pushed the darkness a few steps away. Outside, the circle of light was still a world without a clear face. A small sound in the bushes could be just the wind, but it could also be an animal moving very slowly. A shadow passing by could be a tree branch, but in the mind of someone who is afraid, it can easily become something with intention. And this is a very human point. When we cannot see the world clearly, humans begin to see more, in the imagination. Darkness does not only frighten us, it forces us to explain, and when there was no science, no maps, no cameras. The strongest explanation was often a story around the fire. Elders told of a failed hunt, of an animal smarter than humans had imagined, of a place not to step into when the moon was too thin, of someone who had died but was still spoken of by name, as if they were still sitting somewhere at the edge of the light. Those stories were not only for entertainment. They taught children what to fear, whom to remember, whom to trust, where to avoid. They turned dangerous experience into shared memory. Some studies of hunter-gatherer communities, such as the Jew Hoanzi people in southern Africa, also suggest something very interesting. By day, people tended to talk more about food, work, practical relationships. But at night, around the fire, stories more easily drifted into memory, songs, rituals, and the spiritual world. In other words, daytime helped humans handle the business of living. Nighttime helped them handle the meaning of living. Darkness made the world smaller, but it made the human imagination grow. But after the stories around the fire, the body eventually pulled humans back to a very old thing: sleep. And this is where we often imagine it wrong. We often think ancient people must have slept so easily. No phones, no email, no midnight deadlines. The sun went down, and they lay down, sleeping straight through until morning, as if their bodies had a perfect shutdown mode. But humans are not machines. In a world that still had predators, cold, hunger, disease, and sounds outside in the darkness, sleep was not only rest, it was also a risk. When you close your eyes, it means you temporarily hand over your life to other people. Therefore, in many hunter-gatherer communities, sleep may have been more collective than we imagine. Elders slept more lightly, and small children needed to be kept warm. One person stayed awake late, another woke early. The whole group did not necessarily sink into darkness at the same time. A study of the Hadza people in Tanzania once suggested something very strange. Across more than 220 hours of nighttime observation, there were only about 18 minutes. When all the adults were asleep at the same time, this does not prove all our ancestors slept that way, but it opens up a very beautiful possibility. The mismatch in rhythm between generations was once a layer of protection. Maybe people who often woke up were not only insomniacs. In an older world, they may have been the ears still open while the whole group was dreaming. And then, across many ages, humans still did not always sleep in one straight block, from night until morning. There are historical records that speak of a first sleep and a second sleep, with a waking interval in the middle of the night for praying, talking, caring for children, or simply lying still and listening to the darkness. Ancient people did not necessarily sleep perfectly. They simply had not yet been forced to sleep in a world that never turns off. And that last sentence leads straight to the turning point, the biggest one in the history of night: early artificial light. It was a real victory, no longer having to depend completely on fire, the moon, candles, or oil lamps. Streets became brighter. Hospitals could save people at midnight. Humans could read, study, travel, care for one another, do the things darkness had always interrupted before. Honestly speaking, no one should romanticize a world where just walking through a dark alley could put you in danger. Light has saved a great many people. But then, like many other inventions, the thing that once liberated, humans began to demand back, a part of humanity. When night became brighter, it was no longer a clear boundary. Factories could run longer. Shops could stay open later. Work could spill over into the evening. Then late-night television appeared, the internet appeared, phones appeared, and eventually, the whole world fit inside a small screen, placed right in front of us, at the very moment the body needs darkness most. The strange thing is that the human body does not change as fast as the city does. Deep down, it still reads darkness as a signal that it is time to slow down. But the modern environment keeps saying the opposite. Not yet. There is still work, still messages, still one more video. In the past, the flame drew many people into the same circle of light. Today, the screen pulls each person into a separate circle of light. So what happens? When humans no longer have to respect darkness, maybe we gain more time. We do not necessarily gain more life, and this is where the story starts to hurt more. Because if artificial light gives us more time, then the question is, who does that time truly belong to? Does it belong to us? For resting, reading a book, talking with someone we love, or just sitting quietly for a while? Or does it belong to work? Notifications, algorithms, orders, night shifts, deadlines, and the feeling that we still are not allowed to stop. Modern humans are not only short on sleep. Many times, we are short on a boundary. The boundary between working and living, between being connected and being pulled along, between entertainment and numbness, between staying awake because we want to enjoy a little more and staying awake because we do not know how to end a day. In the past, darkness was very harsh. It was cold. It was dangerous. It was full of sounds that could not be explained. There is nothing romantic about having to fear predators, disease, robbery, or a freezing night when the fire is about to die out. But darkness had something that modernity is blurring. It had limits. When the sky grew dark, the body understood that the day had closed. And when the fire weakened, the story also slowed down. When everything became quiet, humans were forced to hear one another's breathing, and sometimes to hear even themselves. But today, night no longer ends on its own. It stretches on through the watch next button, through a new message, through one small task that has to be handled immediately, through the feeling that if I disappear for a few hours, the world will move past me. Maybe what we have lost is not only darkness, what we have lost is the right to end a day. So, after all that, what do humans do at night? Perhaps the answer is not only sleep. Humans felt afraid, then built fires, kept watch, told stories, listened to sounds outside in the darkness, watched loved ones sleep, remembered the dead, prayed, loved one another, and in those hours that were not completely bright, and not completely safe either, they learned how to live together. Night was once a boundary. Not a pleasant boundary, but a real boundary. It reminded humans that there are times when they must slow down, times when they cannot go any farther, times when the small fire at the center of the group matters more than everything out there. Then we lit up the world, and that is a great thing. Because of light, night became less dangerous. Hospitals could save more people. Cities could function better. Humans gained more freedom, more choices, more opportunities. But perhaps, while making the night brighter, we also unintentionally made the night lose part of its old meaning. It was no longer a place for the day to come to a close. It became an extension of daytime. More work, more news, more videos. One more reason not to stop yet. And so the real question is not what ancient people did at night. The question is what we are doing with our own night. Tonight, before sleeping, will you scroll a little more? Do one more thing. Think through one more loop. Or try to let everything go quiet. Please comment below, because the way a person lives in the night can say a great deal about what they are missing during the day. Maybe sometimes the most civilized thing is not to turn on more lights, but to know how to turn some of them off. Night does not ask how many things we have accomplished. It only asks, when everything goes quiet, do we still know how to stay with ourselves?